Welcome to the Dad Bod Pod, a place for men to learn, grow, and live the healthiest life possible. I'm your host, Jason Priest, and I have a very special guest for you guys today. This guy and I connected actually through Instagram, and we noticed that there was a lot of similarities between us. So I was recently on his podcast, and I couldn't wait to get him on mine as well because he's got a lot of value to add to you guys today. So without further ado, this is Justin Murphy. He's the founder of I Coach Nutrition, and he's a nutrition coach and has a very successful business. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
What's going on, guys? Jason, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm excited to add as much value as I possibly can onto your podcast, knowing that you did the same for mine, man. So super excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm very appreciative of you being here. I know we had quite the discussion during your podcast, and so we'll try to cover some different things. For the listeners. For my listeners who didn't go and listen to your podcast, I know some of them did because I got some feedback from it. But for my listeners who didn't listen to your podcast, just so you guys know, Justin and I actually live he recently moved, but we lived in the same town. We had no idea. Again, we connected through Instagram. And there was just a lot of similarities, even dating back to our childhood, we'll call them shortcomings as far as some of the trouble we got into. We were both fully entrenched in the rave scene. Justin has a brand new son, so a lot of similarities here. So I'm sure that he's going to bring a lot of value today. So Justin, I do want to ask you. This is the first question I ask everybody, but there was a recent study, and I don't know how recent we'll call it now, but from Planet Fitness about the dad bod, right? And so as well as I do, society is kind of softening its stance on weight in general, and so I just want to get your opinion on kind of, what are your thoughts on the dad bod and kind of what this dangerous trend is leading to and with the obesity trend in our country. So tell me a little bit about that.
The dad bod. Yeah, no, I think that I definitely see how it can happen. My first month after having a kid was probably the hardest month of my whole entire life. I'm somebody that gets 8 hours of sleep every single night, and I'm like, don't touch my sleep or I'll kill you, So, I definitely can see how parents feel, almost guilty to prioritize their own self, especially during those first 6 months or whatever. And, they don't work out and maybe they're not eating healthy. Obviously their sleep's thrown off and all these different things. And so I get it. I definitely see how it can happen. I think for me as a leader in the space, obviously I can't let it happen to me. Right. So it's
Sure.
One thing that's it's almost like a stressor in a sense, if you really think about it, because it is hard. I mean, it's challenging for me too, as I was telling you earlier, I competed at a really, really high level in CrossFit. I qualified for regionals 2 years in a row. And, that's like the top 20 people out of 15,000 people in the region. And, I was super strong, super fit, super shredded. I think back to 3 years ago and I don't look anything like I used to.
Sure.
And so there's a struggle in that as well. But, I think for me, it's like priorities change, right? I mean, just like what you mentioned earlier. And I think that I had to, kind of make a decision at that time as to, do I want to go all in on my business, or do I want to keep pursuing this dream of competing in this sport? And I'm glad that I made the decision that I did, to pursue and go all in on that. But, I think from an empathetic standpoint, if I wasn't in this field of nutrition and fitness, I 100% could see me getting the dad bod,
Sure.
It's easy to happen. It's easy to do. I mean, this is what I get to focus my whole life on, and it's still hard, so I can only imagine. But yeah, man, I definitely don't think that we should be highlighting or supporting, being unhealthy, right? Whether you're a male or a female, I think that we all should strive to live a healthy lifestyle so that ultimately our kids can see that and they can grow up and they can follow our footsteps and do the same.
Yeah, and to your point, I can't agree more. And, some of it is about being the leader of your family in every aspect, and so, a lot of my clientele comes to me because they're very successful in all areas of their life other than their health. You know, they have a very successful business. They've got a strong family at home, and they've just kind of let their health take a back seat. And, the fact that heart disease is the number one leading cause of death in our country, it scares the hell out of me, especially seeing this trend. It's like we're starting to embrace it more and more, and I'm all about self-love. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you shouldn't love yourself or who you are, but when you start to let yourself go and you procrastinate with your health, you know as well as I do, the longer that you wait to address it, the harder it's going to get. So I guess my next question for you would be, as a new dad, what have you done? You mentioned the sleep, you mentioned your eating habits are already good. You and I talked for a bit before the show, and I know you told me that you're the chef of the family, just like me. So that's awesome. I find that to be a very great trait about you, and I think that more men should embrace that in the kitchen. But how have you adjusted to your new life with the new baby at home, and kind of, have there been any sacrifices that you've had to make in terms of your fitness?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I feel like my world's been turned upside down over these last 4.5 months. I mean, to be honest, luckily, we are extremely blessed, and I'm so grateful for the fact that, a big reason for us moving out here to Prosper was that both of our parents had moved out here within the last 3 years. And so we're literally within 5 minutes of both of our parents' house.
That's
and
huge.
It's huge. And not to mention, my wife's mom actually just retired. And so, on days, and also my wife, who's a nurse, we've been able to let her go part-time. And so because of that, she only works 2 days a week. And on those 2 days a week, her mom watches Josiah. And so, it's allowed me to, I started a business 1.5 years ago, right? So through this transition, I mean, I've still been able to continue to progress and grow, and I couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the support that we've had. So, have my workouts suffered? Have I gotten a little bit less sleep here and there? Have I, had to sacrifice in terms of just like becoming more selfless in general? Like, yeah, absolutely. But is my life, like, we are so lucky and so blessed to have the parents in our life that we do, and the support, because I have plenty of clients that I talk to that aren't, they're maybe states away from their parents, and they don't have that support. And I couldn't even imagine. I don't think I could have keep progressing the business if I wouldn't have had that help.
Yeah, no. And you bring up a good point, man, because and I remember when my son was first born, and really it's those first 6 months are quite the challenge. And it is all about sacrifices. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And congratulations, because being a dad is the most amazing thing in the world. And I'm glad that you're getting to experience it, because look, like, that guy is, my little guy is my inspiration. And, you bring up the business, you bring up your fitness. Like, for me, leading by example and showing him, what it's like to live a healthy lifestyle. He's watching my every single move. And I talk about this often, but kids will do what you do way before they do what you say. And so it's so important to instill these behaviors at an early age. But yeah, in the beginning, man, it's all about sacrifices. I'm thinking about a specific client right now, and he will eventually listen to this. And you mentioned the word Josiah, and his name is Josiah. He actually recently had twins. And I say recently, it's been a little while now. And so the adjustments are being made at home. But he had twins, dude, and they already had a kid. And I can't imagine, it blows my mind to see how well he did by stepping up, figuring out a way to make it work at home, because we went all home workouts for him. Gym wasn't an option when you're trying to help wifey at home and, juggle these 3 children. And so, the sacrifice thing is huge. And so I guess my next question to you would be this. So right now, let's take out the last 4 months or so with your son being born. Prior to that, what does, and eventually I'm sure this is what you'll get back to, but what does a normal week of fitness look like for you? And, what do you focus on mostly now?
Yeah. So I kind of came, the 5 years. So 3 years ago, I kind of stopped competing in CrossFit. I kind of took my whole self out of the whole space, eventually there. But, for 5 years, I was really hardcore into CrossFit and competing at a regional level, like I said. since then, now what I do, I've kind of transitioned over the last 3 years. So I work out at Cowboys Fit now, which I'm sure you've heard of. There's one up there in the Star and then one in there in Plano. And so I work out there, and I do one of my buddy, Cody Boom Boom, Cody McBroom's, it's kind of like a functional bodybuilding program. And so since CrossFit, I've done 3 of his programs, and there's been like an 8-week, a 10-week, a 12-week, but that's kind of been what I've evolved into, is kind of this like functional bodybuilding space. And so, I don't really do a lot of Olympic lifts anymore. I don't really do a lot of like gymnastics in terms of like muscle ups or rope climbs or any of that anymore. I lift heavy, and I work out, typically 4 to 6 times per week. I am pretty proud to say the only week that I didn't get in at least 4 workouts was the week that I had Josiah.
Yeah.
I think I got like maybe 1 or 2 in that week, but I got back on it, and it was a big priority to me because, again, like as a leader in the space, like it doesn't mean it's not hard for us. I mean, like this shit's still hard for all of us. Like I didn't want to go work out. I didn't want to eat healthy. I didn't, all of these things. And so I don't know. I feel like I get so much more out of being a coach and like leading other people, just simply because I have that accountability of like, I have to lead from the front or I just don't feel right about myself,
Yes. No. And that's powerful because I was actually, on one of my Instagram stories today, man, I went to the gym. I wasn't feeling it today. And when I go into my Man Up community and I start seeing these guys posting about their workouts, posting about their wins, or I go into my fitness app and I see that they're hitting personal bests on a Friday, where I'm sitting here thinking, hell, I don't want to go to the fucking gym today. I got no interest in going to the gym. It's like, I'm walking the walk and talking the talk, and I'm the one that created this community. I'm the one that is instilling these values, these core values in these men, and asking that they level up with their health to become the healthiest version of themselves. And it inspires the hell out of me. And so I love that because, when you're trying to lead by example, just like with your son, when you're trying to lead by example and you've got, these people, these clients and this audience that's counting on you to really continue to show them the way, it's almost, it weighs on you a little bit. You're like, wait, I can't skip the gym today because I got these guys that are thriving over here and I'm just going to feel guilty about it. So you mentioned with the week that your son was born, you only got there 1 or 2 times. My question to you is this, because I have this in my own life. I have a minimum standard of 3 times a week. I'm usually in there 5 times a week, most weeks. But I have a minimum standard of 3. And if I don't hit 3, like I'm beating myself up about it. So do you have something like that in your own mind? Or how does your mindset keep you consistent in the gym? Do you have these little mind hacks that you play with yourself?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think my biggest hack for me is if I want to work out, that shit better happen first thing in the day. Like okay. I have to go work out at 6 a.m. or whether it's excuses or something actually happens, I don't even want to put myself out for the risk of not getting it in. So right. For me, it's like, make sure that I go to bed at 10 p.m. at night, make sure I wake up at 6 a.m., go work out first thing, just knock it out,
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, I think because I literally was an athlete and competed in something my whole entire life from the time I was 4 up until 3 years ago, like I've really tried to actually kind of give myself a little bit of grace over these last 3 years because, sure. I mean, I was in the gym for 5 years training 3 or 4 hours a day. That was my reality 3 years ago. So, I think that I don't want to go as deep to say I had like adrenal fatigue or whatever, but like I definitely ran myself into the ground. I mean, I was competing in CrossFit, working out 3 or 4 hours a day. I was in school full-time pursuing my degree in nutrition. I was working 50, 60 hours a week. Like I was getting maybe like 5 or 6 hours a night. I ran my body into the absolute ground. So, for probably, I would say 2 years after competing, it was so hard for me to go to the gym. Like, yeah, because I was still trying to go to CrossFit and like my body just didn't want that anymore. Like my body was like, get me away from that. I was done. And so it wasn't until I figured that out and transitioned completely out of it into more of this like lower intensity, like functional bodybuilding that I was actually like had that want to go again. You know,
Yeah.
it's one thing to not want to go every once in a while, but to not want to go every single day, like something's wrong with you, you know? And
Yeah.
I was just burnt out. Like, and so, you know, I'm in a good place now, but those 2 years after, I mean, I really kind of had to give myself grace, because if not, I would just beat myself into the ground about, oh, you're not working out. I mean, I needed rest at that time. Like, that's the best thing I could have done for myself. So it's interesting, right? It's like a double-edged sword. It's like sometimes like you have this mentality of like all or nothing, and like you need, like you're just being lazy, you need to work out more. And then there's some people out there that are like, they just need to put their foot on the brake and chill out a little bit. Like they're just running themselves into the ground. And so I think finding that balance is definitely important. You know, I think most people out there are probably, you know, not doing enough, but at the same time, there are those like kind of crazies like I was, and they actually need to pull things back a little bit, you know?
Yeah, no. And that's pretty powerful stuff. And, you know, and I love that. And, you know, the thing that I picked up on there most was that you have this expectation of yourself. So I know that you needed to listen to your body. Obviously, your body was like, no more fucking CrossFit, right? Like, I'm done with this. I've done it long enough. You've beat me up long enough. My one question would be, before I expand on that, how long are your gym sessions now with the bodybuilding stuff, or the lifting heavy?
Yeah. So what's so funny is I used to be in the gym like 3-4 hours a day. Now I'm in the gym for 1 hour per
Love
day.
it.
So it's almost like I used to work out like basically I would get 4 sessions in 1 day. So like a whole week of training for me now was like 1 day of training back then.
That's wild, man. That's wild. I remember those days, because when you say the functional bodybuilding, there was a time in my life, and we talked about it before the show, where I was into bodybuilding and I thought that I wanted to compete in physique shows. And I was doing the same thing, doing the 2.5 hour, 3 hour gym sessions, hitting the gym at 5 and not coming home till 8:30 at night, which is completely absurd. And it's just not sustainable, you know, unless that's what you do. And so for me, and I know that you probably do have a lot of the similar approach with your clients, and that coaching that sustainability, you know, making sure that what I'm teaching my clients is a sustainable blueprint for life. Most people aren't going to spend several hours in the gym. And so one of my core values of what I teach is having my clients in and out of the gym in under an hour, because that's what I do. And I want them to have a plan that can be consistent over the long haul. And when you start spending hours in the gym, it's just not reality for most people. So what I wanted to expand on was this, and then I think this is important for my audience, because many of the people that are listening to this are struggling to get started or struggling to stay consistent. And what you said was that you would almost beat yourself up for not being in the gym. Like you have to be there. It's become an expectation of yourself. It's become part of who you are and what you stand for. You've always been an athlete. You know, and you had that little time where you fell off a little bit, or you took a break, and you were struggling to get back to the gym for a short period. So for my listeners, I guess, how do we flip the script on that and get them to a point where that does become their new standard? Like what would be your advice to get them from not doing anything or just doing a little bit to getting to the point where you and I are, where you have that laser focus and that's just really part of who you are?
Yeah, man, that's the $1 million question, ain't it?
It is.
You know, I think that the thing that I really try to talk about the most is just, you know, you got to start with one thing. You know, I think, and myself included, I think so many of us we're into this point where it's just like, oh, it's this all or nothing mentality. It's like, all right, I'm going to do this diet, I'm going to do this program, and I have to do this, and this, and a million different things. And it's like, dude, like you have a busy life. Like I get it. Like the last thing you need to do is do a complete overhaul of your life.
Love
like
that, man.
We got to start with one thing. Start with the lowest hanging fruit. Like start with the one thing that's going to move you forward the most. And, you know, I don't know if you've read the book, The One Thing, but I love recommending that book. It's a phenomenal book that talks exactly of that. You know, it's like if you can hire a coach or whoever and have them, you know, take that 10,000 foot view of your life and help you to realize all of the things that you're doing in your life that are creating self-sabotage and not moving you closer to your goals. Like if I sit here and ask you, like, what's your biggest problem? Like, what's your biggest struggle? What's the one thing that's holding you back the most? Like, you know what it is. right? Like you might give me some bullshit answer and not tell me the truth, but deep down, you know what it is.
Hell yeah.
And so the more that I can peel back the layers and uncover that, once we can discover and unveil that actual truth, then that becomes your why, right? And your why, if it's strong enough, can get you over anything. It can help you overcome anything that comes at you.
Yes.
I mean, that's the quote I have on my wall right here. I mean, it's the thing I literally look at every single day. It says, you can overcome any how, right? If your why is strong enough. And I think that's a huge, huge motivator because, I mean, you know, again, I've never been 100 pounds overweight or anything like that. I've helped clients lose 100 pounds. And so, you know, I can't say that I've had a transformation like that myself on the physical side.
Sure.
But on the mental side, I've definitely had it, right? We've talked about like I was, you know, basically a drug addict and sold drugs and all these different things, you know, 10 years ago. And my transformation was way more on that side of things. My transformation was going from living a life of hurting people solely to living a life of helping people. And
I love that, man.
I mean, that's been my literal like oxygen ever since. I mean, that's the driving force between everything I do. And now I have a kid and, you know, obviously that's a huge driving force, my family, but it still goes back to that one day. That's when I found God. That's when I realized my purpose on earth. That's when I realized that like, if I dedicate the rest of my life to helping other people, I will be fulfilled.
100%, dude. There are so many freaking similarities between us. And I know we've hashed that out. We did it half the time on your podcast because it's just, it's ironic, man. Like you and I came across each other on Instagram, like we said. And, you know, like I have basically the same exact story of you of I came from a place of hurting people and really doing no good to really dedicating my entire life to helping people. And I'm with you 100%. Like for me, I didn't start my business for any other reason but pure fulfillment. Like seeing people level up with their health and knowing that I'm helping them potentially extend their quantity of life, but also significantly improving their quality of life is what fuels my fire. And it sounds like it's the exact same for you. And so when I go to bed at night, knowing that I've done my best to add as much value to the world as possible, you know, I sleep really well at night because of that. And so I love that. You know, you're living out your purpose. You're doing something that you love, and I'm in the same boat. So my question for you, because I recently, most of my listeners know this, but I'm going to call it, let's say a few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, I massively overhauled, and I know we don't massively overhaul much, but I massively overhauled my morning routine. And, you know, I'm not going to detail it out because, like I said, a lot of my listeners know about it. But how important is your morning routine? And is that something that – now let's cut the window of 4 months with the baby because I know that that's a little bit different. But your normal routine prior to your son being born and obviously what you'll get back to, is that – I know you mentioned working out in the morning. Is that part of your driving force, and what does that look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll tell you what, I mean, truthfully, I probably got back into my morning routine here very recently, probably within the last like 2 weeks. So it was basically 4 months of not really doing it.
Yeah.
But I like to structure it like this. I like to think of it as I want something that's spiritual, mental, physical, right? So I basically, as soon as I wake up, I lay still in bed, right? And I will read. So there's like the Bible app.
Okay.
Right. And so they have those those programs or whatever where you can search and you can do, you know, I love the one that they have like for men or for new fathers or getting married, and it's like a devotional.
Okay.
So it takes, you know, like maybe 3 to 5 minutes. So I'll start with that. Right. Then from there, I want the mental side of it. So the mental and the physical, I just combine. And so as soon as I finish that devotional, I'll go to the gym. I have my ear pods, I'm listening to a podcast, go to the gym. I'm working out while I'm listening to a podcast.
Okay.
And then the fourth component of that is, I guess you can call it like nourishment or whatever, right? So I'll come back from my workout, I'll have like a post-workout shake and breakfast, and then I'll start my day. So those 4, like that's my morning routine basically. That's
awesome, man. Yeah. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in the fact that, you know, how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? And, you know, we don't need to get technical on that, but for most situations it holds true. And so, you know, I know that through my interactions and engagement on social media, I've had a lot of people give me feedback on their morning routines, and that, that it could use a lot of work. And the reason I ask about the morning routine is because it was such a game changer in my life, and how it really just completely has me dominating my day and being proactive instead of reactive. So I love that. It sounds like you have a very structured routine that you follow. If you waver from that, for me, if I waver from mine, I feel off. I don't feel like the man that I'm meant to be on a daily basis. So, I love that about you, because, it's such a powerful thing. And when you buy into it, a lot of people they think that, for me, it's gratitude, meditation, a short little motivational podcast. And like I said, I won't detail it all out, but it's a similar sequence. And until you buy into the process, you don't get results. And we live in an immediate gratification society, as you well know. You and I both have $1,000 computers. We can look up anything we want on our phone and get the answer immediately. And so far too often, like with health and fitness, you have these people that gain a bunch of weight over a span of a bunch of years, but they want to lose it all in one day. And they want immediate results from meditation and immediate results from a gratitude journal. And it's so much about buying into the process and just making it about who you are and what you stand for. And when you do, the results pay off, tenfold, as you well know. So one thing I want to touch on is the cheat meal stuff, because I know I've seen some of your content on Instagram, and kind of your stance on, red meat and some of the things that you talk about in terms of nutrition. So you and I have very similar beliefs when it comes to that kind of stuff. And we've not taken a deep dive into that. But what is your stance on cheat meals and enjoying food? For me, food is one of the many joys of life. So what does a week of nutrition look for Justin Murphy, since he is iCoach Nutrition?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm all about, quality of life and enjoying life, and not trying to go on these crazy extremes. And, so for me, a lot of people asked me about that, and I did a whole full 7-day layout. I showed all the pictures of everything I ate for 7 days, logged everything in MyFitnessPal, weighed everything, showed everything.
That's awesome.
And, I think 3 of those days we went out to eat. And I had margarita or an old fashioned or, whatever,
sure.
At the end of the day, I've lived my whole life competing. Right. And so if the maintenance phase is defined right now, I mean, that's what I'm living. Of course I want to live a healthy lifestyle, but I'm not trying to have an 8-pack. I'm not trying to go, compete at the CrossFit Games. I'm really trying to enjoy the quality of my life. And if anything, I'm really trying to help my wife, be able to prioritize herself again.
Sure.
It's so hard for her to go and get back into a workout routine and all that. I feel like she needs my support more than anything right now. So, for me, literally just to break it down, I try to cook the majority of the food that I eat, plain and simple, right? I try to grocery shop every single week. I try to cook the majority of the food that I eat, but I love Mexican food. I think I'm addicted to Mexican food. I think I need to go through an intervention, but yeah, I mean, chips and queso and margaritas, tequila
Dude, you're
shots.
right up my alley, man. That is so me too.
Yeah. I mean, you're local, so Mexican sugar, dude, that's my spot. I don't know if you've ever been there.
That's a great spot. If you can get a table, that's a great spot.
Yeah. Right. But, yeah, man, I don't follow some diet. I don't do, paleo or whatever. I guess in a sense, paleo is probably the closest to what I do, but I mean, I try to eat, I buy the majority of my groceries from Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. I try to cook the majority of my food. I don't really eat snacks that much. I'm not really much of a snack. I get in trouble with snacks. I'm the guy that if I start eating chips or popcorn or ice cream, I'm going to eat the whole entire bag or container of it. So got to be careful there. But I try to eat a big breakfast, a big lunch, a big dinner, and focus on my major meals. I try to eat 6 to 8 ounces of a meat or a fish at those major meals. I try to fill up half of my plate with either vegetables or fruits. And then I always have a starch in there too. So rice or potatoes or quinoa or tortillas or whatever it may be.
Sure.
And then, I would say we definitely probably go out to eat twice a week, if not 3 or 4 times. I mean, really the going out to eat for me, I like eating healthy food for the most part. Of course I like to throw down and eat, I don't know. I don't like to say bad food, but fun food or whatever. Right.
Unhealthy food, right?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But I think more of it's just like, I mean, living in this Dallas area, I mean, if we go out to eat, like if I go to Mexican Sugar, like, I mean, that's $100 tab. So if I go out to eat 4 times in a week, like that could be $400 just going out to eat.
Yeah.
So like, it's just like, I think that's more of it for us. Like trying to restrict it to maybe once or twice a week would be just I guess, financially smarter. Right.
Sure.
But I mean, cause I buy high quality food. So I'm spending, $250 at the grocery store every week. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's $1,000 a month. So if you're spending $400 a week eating out, like, damn,
That adds
like,
up quick, man.
yeah. So, but yeah, man, I do not try to be some like Nazi or perfect person, like I genuinely enjoy eating healthy food that nourishes me, but at the same time, like I love food. I'm a foodie. Like I love Mexican food. I love burgers. Those are my 2 favorite, and sushi. Those are my 3 favorite food groups probably, right? I mean, there's been so many weeks, I tell you what, there's been so many weeks where I literally made tacos for every single meal or like every lunch or every dinner, but like I'll just switch up the meat or the fish that's in every single one of them, and I'll switch up the veggies that are in every single one of them. Or I'll do the same thing with burgers. Like we'll make like regular burgers, and then I'll make like tzatziki lamb burgers, and like I'll switch up the meat and the veggies in every stack, and just it's almost like I have my own taco restaurant, my own burger restaurant with 10 different options of each.
That's so awesome, dude. That resonates with me so much because I'm a big fan of, I coach my clients on this too, is like finding these go-to meals and these go-to snacks that can be just consistent in your life, right? Simplify your life as much as possible when it comes to nutrition. And you basically just summarize that, man. Like the simplicity is there. You're not overcomplicating the process. You're focusing on getting, real nutrient dense foods into your life, but you're also not going to sit here and be, super restrictive or super anal retentive about exactly what the macronutrients are. You're just trying to eat good, healthy foods the majority of the time, so that when you do have these cheat meals, as long as you're getting your fitness in and you're eating healthy most of the time, that's really all you got to worry about. And we live in a society where people love to overcomplicate things because they've waited so long to address it. And so I love that. You mentioned Mexican food, burgers, and then you got to sushi, and I love all 3 too, but burgers obviously are part of my brand. So I have a burger every single week, and you've seen them on Instagram. And then the Mexican food piece, dude, those are my 2 favorite. Like that's so me too, man. So that's awesome. So I guess my next question for you would be, if you could give my listeners one piece of advice, if they're struggling with nutrition, and I'll just use sugar for an example. I have a sugar addiction. I'll be fully transparent. I did almost a half of an episode all on sugar. It is the devil for me. And if I keep it in the house on the weekends, like I don't eat unhealthy at all during the week. Monday or Sunday night through Friday afternoon is on point all week long. Super clean, super healthy. If we have sugar in the house on the weekend, I will clean house, dude. Like I'm the guy that I'll go back for ice cream after ice cream after ice cream. So when you're coaching your clients and you're trying to help them with a sugar addiction or to try to get rid of some of these bad foods, what is your approach on that? And give me some insight there.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is, again, having that perspective, right? That self-awareness of like, what type of person are you? You and I both just define what type of people we are. We know, right? Sure. Like if I got ice cream, I'm gonna eat the whole box. If I got chips, I'm gonna eat the whole bat. Like I just know how I am. Whereas my wife is completely opposite. And that's actually an interesting dynamic, right? Because she wants to go and buy the snacks and all that. I'm like, stop buying that. She's like, quit eating it all. And I'm like, I can't, so but I think that's what it really comes down to, is you have to have that self-awareness. What type of person are you, right? Yeah. Are you the person that has that self-control and can, have a bite or two and then be good? Are you the person that's going to go crush the whole box or bag or whatever? So I think in my opinion, I think that's the biggest piece, is like we have to create that self-awareness first. And for some people, they might think that they know what type of person they are, right? But as we assess through that week or a few weeks or whatever, like if we find out that that's not the case and maybe you're actually the opposite, then that's fine. Like you just didn't have that awareness. So we need to build that self-awareness, because once you ultimately know that, then it becomes very black and white. It becomes a decision, yes or no, right? Are you going to be the type of person that does that or not? You know, I was talking to a client today actually, and I wanted to share this because I think it really resonated with him. And I think that it's something that's really been resonating with me more as I've been thinking about it, but it's called the integrity bank account.
Okay.
Right. We all have this integrity that we have with our own self. Right. And for some people, the levels are really, really low. And for some people, the levels are really, really high. Right. An example of this could be, hey, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and go work out. And then you don't work out. Right. Or maybe you do work out. What type of person are you? Right. And I think that every single time that we make a decision, right, we're either adding to or taking away from our integrity bank account.
Okay.
Right. So for example, if I'm talking to you and you're my coach right now, right, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to wake up every single day this week and go work out at 6 a.m. Well, if tomorrow morning I do it, I add $1 into my integrity bank account.
Okay.
The next day, if I hit snooze and I skip my workout, I take $1 away. Right. And so it's this whole idea is like, we care about what other people think and their opinions so much, but yet we let ourselves off our own hook all the time. Right. Yes. Our integrity with ourselves more times than not is we don't hold ourselves to a standard. And that's the problem.
So powerful.
You know?
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%, man.
The integrity bank account. What's your balance?
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to kind of play by, you know, and I know earlier in the episode we talked about the kind of the mind hack stuff, but you know, I talk about this all the time, but finding these little things that you can do and implement in your life that can almost trick your mind to get you on the path moving forward. You know, if something like that, you know, it seems so elementary, you know, and I talk about this all the time too. It's like, if you're not exercising, you're trying to go from doing nothing to something, buy a paper calendar, hang it on your fridge, and put an X every time you walk for 10 minutes. Set a goal. If your goal is to walk 3 times a week for 10 minutes, and you do this over the span of a month, and you look back and you only walked 8 times, and you were supposed to walk 12, you need to do something about it, right? It's just little simple things like that can be so huge for people, but we want to overcomplicate it. We want this high tech answer. And when you dumb it down like that, the integrity bank account makes so much sense, because it's like, you want to cheat yourself, or do you want to hold yourself to a higher standard, man up, and become the fucking man or woman you were meant to be? Become the healthiest version of yourself so that you can live the life that you want. You know, you and I both know that health is wealth. Without it, you don't have much. And so it's very hard for me to make sense of some situations where people just don't want it. You know, I got no answer for that. And like you said, that's the $1 million question in terms of the drive and what keeps you there, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And I think we might even talk about this on my podcast with you, but I think it all goes back to a lot of the stuff we're talking about isn't necessarily sexy, right? Like go walk for 10 minutes a day, go work out, like cook, go grocery shopping. Like this stuff isn't sexy. These aren't crazy hacks. You've heard all this stuff before, but we define these things as like the big rocks, right? We have this mason jar, right? And let's call it 5, 6, 7 or whatever, big rocks. That's staying hydrated, getting your sleep, working out, eating healthy, right? Like those big rocks, like it doesn't matter what the latest fad or trend that comes out is, like those big rocks freaking matter. I'm telling you what, they've been there forever, right?
Right.
So when people are like, oh, keto, intermittent fasting, carnivore diet, all these different things, like those are starting to become pebbles in sand. Like those things are not the big rocks. It's not the big picture. It might be sexier because it's new, right? But this is old, tried and true stuff, It's like, and that's the hard part for so many people to grasp is like, man, it really is just these simple things that I've heard a million times that I actually have to, it's almost like building a business, right? Like, oh, you can't just
exactly the same. It is.
You can't just sit back on an island and have a passive income where you're on a laptop on your beach or whatever. Like you got to put in work if you want to build a business. You got to put in work if you want to change your life, like
showing up every day.
One thing I think I talk about a lot too is that, for a lot of people, I mean, and again, I haven't lost 100 pounds, right? I haven't been on that side of the transformation myself in my own personal life, but I think that if people can reflect back, because a lot of people we work with, right? Like, they're successful, and like you said, they're successful in all the other areas of life except health. Well, if they can think back and reflect through their life at every last thing that they've gone through, where at the beginning of the journey, they thought that they weren't going to be able to accomplish it, right? They had that self-doubt, right? Like for some people, maybe it's college or getting that dream job or whatever it may be. Like before you start, it looks like the journey is going to take forever and you're probably not going to make it. Like, or that would be cool if you got there, whatever you tell yourself.
Right.
It's the same thing with this journey. Like, of course it's going to be hard. Like, was it hard for you to accomplish that goal? Like, was it hard for you to get that job or graduated with that degree? Like, hell yeah, it was.
Yeah.
This is no different. It's going to be hard. Like, sorry, it's going to be hard. Like, period.
Yeah. And to your point, and this is something that I've been repeating often a lot because I think that it's so powerful, but this relates to that exactly. It's like, you mentioned earlier in the episode that living the fit life is not an easy life to live, right? Like getting up, getting to the gym, eating healthy the majority of the time, trying to get the adequate sleep, the rocks that you were telling, the foundation, the core things, the water intake, stress management, sleep, fitness, nutrition. None of those things are easy. They don't come easy. But I've lived the fat life, and living the fat life is a very hard life too. And so the question that I often ask is, which hard do you want to live? Do you want to live the hard life that's fat, where you're going to have a lot of health issues down the road? You're building this wealth or this retirement fund only to give it all back to doctors and hospitals? Or do you want to live the fit life that's also very hard, but you're going to be healthy? You're going to have energy to jump out of bed every single day. You're going to feel like you can take over the world most days, unless you have a new baby, right? But choose your hard wisely, right? And that's what it is. It's like none of it's easy. Life is hard in general. Like there's no easy part of life unless you're sitting on the patio with the margarita and the queso and you've got that 10 minutes where it's like, all right, this is easy. But yeah, man, that's powerful. I love that.
Well, and I love what you said, right? It's like, choose your hard. Like life's going to be hard regardless.
Yes.
Which hard do you want to choose? It's completely up to you. And I think that, ultimately, because I think this has been an interesting reflection on me too. I had this huge dream of wanting to build this huge company with all these coaches and everything else. And like, ever since I had a child, I realized that that's actually not what I want to do. I think perspective changes a lot, and I think your priorities change. And I think, ultimately, like, unfortunately, I talk with so many people that are 40, 50, 60 years old, and now they're prioritizing their health because they're scared, because their parents are now having health issues and things like that. And it's like, man, to be so reactive, right, like that, like, we got to be proactive in this approach, right? Like, we got to realize that it's not about the way you look with your shirt off necessarily. It's about just like, do you want to live a healthy life? Like, if you have kids, like, that's where it really, really hit me hard. Is it's like, like you said, like, your kids aren't listening to what you're saying, bro. Like, your kids are watching what you're doing,
Right.
And they're watching every last move, like you said. And for me, I mean, that's the thing that like almost like scares the death out of me, because it's like, I mean, I got eyes on me all the time. Like and not yet, he's 4.5 months. Right. But like, I want to make sure that I'm that role model. And my dad, I mean, I love him to death. And like, I learned so much from him. My work ethic is 100% because of him, but he, I made this move 1.5 years ago so that I could, work from home, so that I could be around my son more, because, my dad worked all the time and he was never home.
Yeah.
And like, that was something that I really feel like I want to kind of flip the script and change the story. I don't want to live that story again. I don't want to let that story play out again. I want to change it.
Yeah.
And that's that right there, I think, is hopefully what I hope people take away from this podcast right here, which is, you have the ability to change your story at any time.
Absolutely.
Like, you live in America, probably, for the most part.
Yeah.
Nobody's holding a gun to your head. Like, you have the ability. It's up to you. What are you going to prioritize?
Yep. No, you're 100% right, man. I love that. And it's really all about that. You know, it just comes down to priorities. What are your priorities? And if you're listening to this podcast, you at least have some kind of interest in changing your health. And so it really all just comes down to taking that first step, taking action. You know, if getting started is the hardest part, you're literally one step away from a healthier lifestyle. And no pun intended, but really, I mean, like, just get started, you know? And so I love that you mentioned the thing about the shirt off, because this isn't about vanity. And that's what a lot of people, you know, if your why relates to vanity, your why is not strong enough and it's not going to last. You know, taking your shirt off and having a six pack or feeling confident with your shirt off at the beach is a secondary impact of you getting healthier, right? Like, that can't be the priority number one, or it's probably not going to last. So,
man, I 150% agree with that. You know, I always joke because what's the goal of every single person almost that comes to us? It's like, I want to lose weight, right? Like, that's what we hear all the time, right? And I'm like, all right, cool. Let me snap my fingers and have you lose the weight that you want. And you're still not going to be happy. Right. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you're not. Like, you don't just suddenly become happy. You don't just suddenly gain confidence. You don't just suddenly improve your mindset. Like, this stuff takes time. You know, I always joke, I'm like, people come to us for nutrition coaching, but what they leave with is the mindset that's developed along the way.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the game.
Yeah. And that's, you know, for both of us, that's the most powerful thing that we can give back to anybody. You know, like, I tell people all the time, you can go online right now and go print off a very healthy meal plan and a workout and get to work. And if you're willing to put in the work, you'll crush it. You'll get amazing results. But what you're coming to me and what people are coming to you for is to learn, but also to have that mindset shift. And that's where our experience and the journeys that we've had, you've had transformations. Maybe they weren't because of weight, but you've had a pretty solid transformation. And so knowing that we've helped a significant amount of people get healthy, it all comes down to mindset. And you know that mindset is king. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the saying is, right, the information is out there everywhere. We live in a Google and YouTube world. Yeah. The magic is in the application, right? Yep. The application of that information. And more importantly, I think the accountability and the community and the human connection piece, like, sure, that right there, you know, I think that's the biggest variable, because it's like, we you know, I think at some points or multiple points in our life, we all feel lost. You know, I think we're all on this journey and we get lost, we fall off, we're not as proud of ourselves as we are at other times. And we're looking and seeking community. And, you know, like, that's why I love what you do. I love what we do. I love what everybody out there that's in our space is doing. It's like, we're trying to build communities. We're trying to give people support and education, a lot of times for free. Right. Yes. And then, you know, obviously we have those other tiers of coaching, but it's like value. Like, let's realize, guys, that the information is out there everywhere. And the missing link for so many people is just a lot of times just filtering out the BS in the industry and, you know, realizing that those big rocks are the things that matter most.
Yeah, no, I love that. And finding those trustworthy sources, you know, and finding the reputable people that are going to help you get to where you want to be. And I'll just add to your point real quick. Like, I've had people reach out to me on Facebook. That's the power of social media, from other countries, telling me that, you know, I might not think that I'm doing enough, but that I've inspired them, you know, all the way across the Pacific Ocean or all the way up across the Atlantic Ocean. And when I hear those things, it is about just adding that value back into the world for fulfillment, but also to help people. Like, at the end of the day, again, my business was never financially driven. It was always about fulfillment. And the more value that I can add to other people's lives and showing them that that's what it comes down to, man. It's about buying into the process, embracing the struggle, because there's going to be a hell of a lot of struggle, and then choosing your hard wisely. Like, if you want to live the fat life, it's hard, because I've been there. And so, well, this has been a fun episode, man. I really appreciate your time today. I do want to allow my listeners to contact or connect with you, because or give them that opportunity, because a lot of them are on Facebook. That's where a lot of my listeners are from, but also starting to trickle in from Instagram. So tell us where we can find you, And I'll add this stuff in the show notes as well. But let my listeners know where we can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely on Instagram, probably the most. And so you can just find me there. Justin Murphy Nutrition is the handle. And then we're on Facebook I'm on there as Justin Murphy. We also have the iCoach Nutrition page. And then our website is just iCoachNutrition.com. And then our podcast, which you were on recently here, is called The Identity Project. And that's a podcast dedicated to sharing stories that inspire. So that's where you can find us at.
Hey, that's awesome, man. Well, I just want to give you a very warm thank you, man. I really appreciate your time. And as we talked about on your podcast, we'll definitely be in connection and stay in contact. You're right up the road. You were in my same town, but maybe we'll have to do once your son gets a little bit older and going out to eat becomes easier. Maybe we'll arrange a double date and get the wives together as well. So
yeah,
thanks again
dude,
for your
time. I would love that, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. So that's all I have for today. And until next time, the Dad Bod Pod is out.